Hello and welcome to the Advanced Xultus MXIE Training Series by Epic Technologies. If you watched our basic series, you know that we tried to cover a lot of information in a short time frame. In this advanced series, we're going to take some additional time on each feature and help you work through each feature and each option and explore fully all of the different settings that are available within the MXIE client so that you can customize it to your unique situation and get the most out of the platform. MXIE installation. Let's start to install the Xultus MXIE client by opening up a Internet Explorer browser. Could use Chrome, could use Firefox, whatever you're comfortable with. And let's browse to the URL or the IP address for our Xultus phone system. You'll need to obtain this IP address from your system administrator. In this case, I've entered the one for my system. First thing you'll notice when you hit the Xultus installation page is that we have MXIE clients for Windows, for the Mac OS X, and for the Linux operating systems. So you'll want to pick out the one that's appropriate to your operating system. For purposes of this demo, we're going to focus on the Windows MXIE environment. We'll click and tell it to run, and it'll begin to go through the login script. It is an unsigned application, so it's perfectly okay to click run for an unknown publisher and then let MXIE go through and complete all the necessary operations. If MXIE's been previously installed on your system, you may see it go through a process to uninstall and then start the reinstallation of MXIE. That's perfectly fine. You also may see some windows that pop up telling you that you need to temporarily stop or disable certain applications or that the installation will do it for you. Just choose accept, absolutely no issue at all, and MXIE will restart the applications after it's completed the installation. If you encounter any problems at all during your installation, please be sure to contact your system administrator. And with that, the MXIE client is finished installing, and if we actually minimize our browser window, you'll see that it's brought us straight to the login screen for MXIE, and we're ready to proceed. MXIE login. Okay, let's start by logging in to the MXIE client. If you'll find the MXIE icon that was placed on your desktop during the installation process, let's double-click on that. Okay, once the login window appears, we'll need to enter our user ID and password for the system. And please remember that these are case sensitive. Your username and password would have been provided to you by your system administrator. If your company has purchased the LDAP integration module, your username and password may be the same as your Windows username and password. But again, please check with your system administrator. After you've entered your password, check the Remember Password button so we won't have to enter it every time. And now we need to enter the URL address or the IP address for our Xultus system. So in my case, I'm entering the IP address, but again, this is a setting that you'll receive from your system administrator. Last, we'll want to select the language that we want to use within the MXIE application. MXIE supports, as you'll see, a wide range of languages here. In order for this language, say if I selected the German language here, I would have to also go into the Windows control panel and into the language pack section and make sure that I have the appropriate language fonts installed in order for it to work here. But you can select the language of your preference and then click OK to continue. Now, you may or may not see this next screen. Depending on the configuration of your system and the potential roles that your system administrator has assigned to you. Within the Xultus platform, we have the ability to play multiple roles. A role is just simply a way of defining what types of calls you're going to handle within the system. So are you a member of the sales group, the dispatch group, the customer service group, etc.? Some roles are grayed out while other roles are selectable. The grayed out roles are roles that your system administrator has assigned to you by default. So in this case, I'm playing the roles for my extension, John Doe, and I'm also a member of the scheduling hunt group. I also have the option of fulfilling two additional roles, optional roles. I can be an operator within the system, or I could be a member of the prescription refill line call group. Now I'm going to do a special module later on in this series focused on the operator role and being part of a call group. So I'm going to leave those unselected for now. Last, if your system has multiple locations defined, multiple locations where your users may be physically located, then you'll have a location selection box down here also. The location selection is important because it drives the 911 notification address. So if you were to pick up your phone and dial 911, we're going to route the emergency responders to you based upon the location that you've defined here. So if you have people that work from home or multiple offices, just make sure you select the right location, and then we're ready to proceed. MXIE overview. Let's start with a high-level overview of the MXIE interface. We'll see here at the top we have what is known as our command function area. We have buttons available for voice call, instant messaging, conference call options, web conferencing, call handling options, voicemail, the address book, call log, and the part calls list. Below the command functions area, we have the presence status area. We have buttons to show that we're available, not available, busy, at lunch, in a meeting, that we'll be right back, or that we wish to appear offline. We also have an ability to enter a text note or a presence note to share with other users in terms of our availability or expected return to the office. Below the presence area, we have the dial pad. And the dial pad only shows at this time because I'm operating in soft phone mode during this training session. If I was bound to the phone on my desktop, the soft phone or the dial pad would not appear. Below the dial pad, we have what are known as session blocks. We have one session block for each role that we presently are playing within the system. Calls that come into my extension appear in the top box because I'm logged in as John Doe. Calls appearing in the bottom would be coming into the scheduling agent or any other role that I'm playing within the system. Out to the right, we have a buddies list. This is a user-definable section that you control, and we'll show you eventually how to add people to your buddies list, but it lets you easily see the presence and availability or to call or connect to other people within the organization. Down at the bottom, we see that we have a notifications area to show missed calls or voicemail messages that are pending or waiting for us in the system. In the bottom left, we have a button for user preferences, and then we have a link for binding MXIE to a telephone device or soft phone. While we're covering this high-level introduction to the MXIE application, let's cover a few of the preferences that are related to the overall setup and appearance of the MXIE application. We call that the Application Preferences panel, and it controls the startup, termination, and certain display aspects of the MXIE window. To access the Application Preferences panel, we want to go into User Preferences. We can do that by clicking on File, Preferences, or we can select the User Preferences icon in the lower left-hand corner. And then we need to choose the Application panel. You'll see here that we have several options available to us. That number one, this Stay in System Tray option simply means that if I were to close MXIE by clicking on this top right red X, that MXIE would not be terminated, but would instead be minimized to my system tray. With this option as checked, if I really want to exit out of MXIE, I have to choose File and Exit from the MXIE application. Below that, we have an option to set MXIE to start when Windows Startup is launched, or when Windows is launched, it'll automatically start the MXIE application. Stay on top just means that the MXIE application will remain visible and on the top of the desktop whenever it's opened, and it will never be minimized to the system tray. Below that, we have options for pop-up notifications. This section controls the appearance and removal of pop-ups from the MXIE window. Pop-ups will appear in the bottom right corner of your monitor to notify you of incoming voice calls, chat invitations, service disruptions, and other changes. Select Display until I click on the pop-up if you wish for all pop-ups to remain until you have acknowledged them. Or you can choose to display the pop-up for a set number of seconds before it would gradually fade into the background. In this case, I've got it set to the display for 7 seconds. You also can control where the pop-ups will appear. By default, they'll appear in the bottom right corner of your monitor. Or if you wish, you can choose to make them appear sort of on the mid-right section of your screen above other pop-ups for other applications. So by default, it'll appear in that bottom right corner. One other area that I'd like to cover while we're doing this high-level introduction to the MXIE application would be the sounds and notifications that the MXIE application is able to generate for you. To access the sounds, we need to click on the Sounds panel, and we'll notice that we have a number of different types of notifications available here to us. Let's start by first of all observing that we have a master volume control here at the top of the panel that allows us to determine the volume of the notification sound that MXIE will send to your computer's sound card. So we can go from low to high simply by dragging on the bar, clicking on the bar and dragging it to where we want it to be. Down below that we have a table called the System Events table. And basically we have a row in this table for each of the different types of events that MXIE is able to notify us upon. We can enable or disable an event simply by checking or unchecking the event for the various types of alerts. So we have the ability here to be alerted on the receipt of an instant message, on an incoming external call, on an incoming internal call, for calls that are on hold, for failure to be able to place a call, for a voicemail that we've received, or for changes in one of our buddies and their presence status, something that we call a presence alert. We'll get into that in a little bit later session. We have the ability to select which type of sound we want to associate with each of these events. We basically have the ability to play any standard wave file. We can click here and navigate to where we find our wave file, select it, and that'll become the sound associated with this event. We also have the option to select whether or not we want that sound to be repeated. So we can say that we want that sound to be repeated every minute, every second, every 10 minutes. And so depending on the nature of the event, maybe you wish to be reminded every 15 seconds or every 30 seconds that you have a caller on hold so that you don't accidentally forget about them. And then we also have the ability to play the wave file or the sound that's associated with that item. Just by simply clicking on it, we can test it ahead of time. Anytime we make changes to the user preferences, it's important that we remember to apply them. So we click the Apply button and apply those changes. Last, we need to make sure that we are sending the sounds or the notifications to the proper sound source on our computer. In today's modern world, we oftentimes have multiple sources of speakers or sound delivery through our computers. And so if we want to pick a specific device that receives these sound notifications, we need to go to the Audio Drivers tab. And if we look at the Audio Drivers panel here, we have basically the ability to select where the voicemails and sound notifications are sent and how we want to record messages. So if we click on the drop down here, we'll see that we have a list I could pick. In my case, for this demo, I'm using a headset. And I want all of my sounds to be delivered there, and I want to record using the microphone built into that headset. So with that, we've completed the user preferences for this portion of this training, and let's go back to the main MXIE application. The last thing we're going to cover in today's overview is just a very quick introduction to the File menu. You'll see that we have the ability to change roles, just like we had during our login process. We also have the ability to adjust our language, just like we did during the login process. We have the ability to create a second instance of MXIE, so if for some reason we wanted to log in as another MXIE user, we could do so. We're going to cover these binding options in our next video, so I'll skip that. And we've already dealt with preferences. Let's spend just a second talking about passwords. You have the ability to change your password by re-entering your current password and entering your new password twice. We highly recommend that you choose numeric passwords only. You could enter an alphanumeric. Remember, it's case sensitive, but numeric passwords are going to be the easiest when trying to access your voicemail. Well, that's going to conclude this part 1 of our Advanced MXIE training series. In this video, we've covered how to install and log into the MXIE application, as well as gotten a basic overview of the application itself. Our next section, we're going to cover how to bind MXIE to your phone, as well as how to place and receive calls. Thanks for watching, and we'll look forward to seeing you in part 2.